Hi, this is Peter Propp, and the timer just started.
This is John Blossom, and welcome to another episode of 10 Minute Strategy. Big happenings in Japan this week. Great tragedy, great sorrow, and great problems in the technology industry. What seems to be happening as the result of all this, Peter?
Well, we're all very sad and concerned about what's going on in Japan, and we wish the best for the people there. One of the stories that's emerged this week has been that somewhere between 40 to 60% of the high-end chips and DRAM chips that go into mobile phones, tablets, obviously computers, turn out to be produced on the island of Japan. And the power supply and the availability of some of the smaller parts are both combining to make it seem like the chip supply coming out of Japan may be severely impacted, and I'm sure the suppliers there are right now scrambling to figure out where to produce those chips in other places besides Japan. So that's the sort of the meta story, what's happening. The near-term story is, people are saying, don't look for discounts on iPhones, don't look for discounts on iPad 2, don't look for anything. You may find total scarcity of those products entirely. And higher prices. So, my question, John, is what's that going to mean for new technology adoption? As the price goes up, are people going to say, like me, heck, I can stick with my phone for another 6 months. I really don't want to buy an older phone that's new. I want to wait for a new phone with newer stuff, and I want to wait until there's a good price on it.
The scarcity issue is very key here, and I think the operant word is substitutes.
Right.
And that can work on a lot of different levels. It can work on both the hardware and the software level. First off, we know that obviously iPad 2 is off to a huge hot start.
Right.
And
sold out.
Sold out.
Yeah.
And that's a problem.
Right.
Because now with this technology gap, all of a sudden it's going to be hard for them to keep sales momentum. At the same time, we have Motorola Xoom, which was not the smoothest launch.
Right.
So they probably have some inventory on the shelf. We really don't know how much they overplanned or underplanned or right-planned that particular launch. But given that they had to tune the platform anyway, and we're going to see some upgraded versions over the next few weeks, this could potentially give Motorola and some of the other Android-enabled tablets that are premium enough to claim to be competitive a run at iPad 2 here to be able to say we're an acceptable substitute.
Right.
And then when you look at some of the other components that are out there, you have to think that people looking for substitutes might be thinking, well, if hardware isn't coming along that's new and exciting, what about software?
Right.
So it's possible we might see upgrades to a lot of mobile products that perhaps manufacturers had put on the back shelf there in favor of pushing new hardware out the door.
Right, so they may be solving a performance problem by getting their software better, which, by the way, is always a really good idea. There's a lot of times when the software engineer will basically opt out of fixing a software issue because they know that better hardware with better RAM, memory, and speed is coming down the road, and why fix it if we can solve it with hardware? Now it may be a great opportunity for the really smart software engineers to get in there, tweak and improve their product with some engineering, elbow grease.
Yeah, and there's definitely room for some more mojo.
Right.
As we saw this week, there was a benchmark test of Safari browser versus the Android mobile browser. Now, some people claim that test was defective, and it may have been. But, people are being exposed to the idea of my software is better than yours.
Right.
So that tends to escalate things, and it's an opportunity in this period for companies to build product loyalty by hook or by crook. And if they can do it, for example, by upgrading their old version of Android on their product to a newer version such as Gingerbread or Honeycomb, some of the more recent versions, then maybe that's an opportunity to increase product loyalty and to keep people from thinking about substitutes.
Right. And again, we don't really understand personally which manufacturers are getting their chips from which place. We know Apple is impacted, and others are sure to be impacted in certain ways. So it's going to be interesting to watch how it all comes out. But we want to get our ideas out there now. Let's talk about the near field opportunity. What's going to happen in near field from a hardware adoption point of view? What's your take?
Just for people who may not be 100% familiar, near field communications is a technology that can fit into a phone like this, and it's a sensor that can live on the back of a phone. It's a very thin device. And if you've ever been into a shop to buy a CD, you remember those things? Or some piece of merchandise, you might have seen this little square thin foil sensor that was glued onto it somehow. And that's what they call an RFID tag. And the RFID tag has the ability to transmit data if it's near something. Near field communications work the same way, using kind of the same technology, but on a much shorter range and with specifications that make it a much more secure interchange of information. So what this particular phone has the ability to do is to be put up in front of a point of sale register that's equipped with near field communications. I can wave in front of it and boom, do a transaction. Pretty much the same that you would do with something like a mobile speed pass at a gasoline station or what have you. Except now Google is using this technology with point of sale technology vendors to be able to do this across the transaction universe. So they're just beginning to start this. So we just have a handful of devices like this that have the technology in. Mm-hmm. Another technology gap, so even if near field communication sensors themselves are not affected, the platforms that need to be built to have them, we're going to see fewer of those in 2011 than we might have otherwise.
And while we're on the subject of near field and back to the subject of Apple, the other really big story this week in this area was that Apple is not going to be implementing near field on the iPhone 5, which is a decision they made recently. And while, of course, they can put whatever they want in their technology, it turns out that their reasoning is really troubling. It turns out that what Apple intends to do is build their own proprietary near-field-like billing environment that they intend to roll out in the retail environment. And frankly, any of you who have been following Apple, the content owners, the book publishers, the music artists, all these people are giving up 30% of the revenue from a product. And while we don't know what Apple's full intentions are in this near-field proxy sort of idea that they're toying with, the number 30% is probably going to be involved somewhere. And to me, that shows incredible tone deafness on the part of Apple.
It could be tone deafness, or we just might be seeing the limits of the Apple vision under Steve Jobs.
Right.
That Jobs cannot get his head around anything beyond what he can control the way that he wants to, and that certainly got him beautiful mileage out of the iTunes store.
Sure.
But it means that he doesn't want to be dealing with other people's hardware, including these little point of sale machines. So
companies like VeriSign that actually know what the heck they're doing in this space.
Exactly.
Why wouldn't they want to partner with Apple? Well, I'll tell you why. If I'm getting up 30%, my retailer who buys VeriSign has to give up 30% if someone uses an iPhone.
Right.
For VeriSign is not going to sign up with that deal. There's
exactly.
No
and merchants aren't going to get the sorts of information that they want to be able to understand how they're getting value out of transactions.
That's another one entirely.
That's the beauty of the Google approach.
Right.
They're going to be able to synchronize their ads and their analytics with the near-field communication transactions.
Right. Yeah, you really wonder at certain times who Apple is listening to when they come up with some of these plans. Certainly they've been so successful, we don't want to suggest they won't be. But I would suggest this may be a time where they should really be thinking extra hard about how they're going to, quote, partner. Because as far as I can tell, partnering doesn't mean it's my terms or else.
That's an interesting way of putting it. So, and I think what this means ultimately is that it's going to be an interesting time here over the next few months to figure out strategy while we wait hardware to show up finally.
Exactly. All right, well, that sort of wraps up another edition of 10-Minute Strategy for Shore Communications. This is Peter Propp.
And John Blossom. Thank you very much.